Imagine holding a handful of sand. At first, it rests peacefully in your palm. Then fear appears. You become afraid of losing it. So you squeeze your hand tighter. The harder you grip, the faster the sand slips through your fingers. Now ask yourself this question: how much of your suffering comes from life itself, and how much comes from trying to control what was never yours to control? It is one of the most important questions you'll ever ask, because every day millions of people wake up carrying invisible burdens. They worry about what others think. They replay conversations they cannot change. They fear a future that hasn't arrived. They try to control people's opinions, the economy, the weather, their children's decisions, their partner's feelings, their co-workers' attitudes, even time itself. And in trying to control everything, they slowly lose control of themselves. Imagine standing in the middle of the ocean. The waves rise and fall around you. You shout at the sea, "Be calm." The wind ignores you. The waves continue crashing. Hours later, exhausted, you finally realize something. The ocean was never listening. It was never yours to command. Life often feels exactly the same. The more we argue with reality, the more exhausted we become. The Stoics understood this more than 2,000 years ago. Epictetus taught one lesson so simple that it can fit into a single sentence: some things are within your control, others are not. That single idea has changed countless lives, yet most people spend their days doing the opposite. They invest enormous energy in what they cannot influence, and almost none in what they can. Imagine a gardener spending every morning pulling on the leaves of a tree, hoping it will grow faster. He becomes frustrated, angry, disappointed. The tree never changes. Another gardener quietly waters the roots, month after month, season after season. Eventually, his tree becomes strong. The first gardener focused on appearances, the second focused on causes. Your mind works exactly the same way. When your attention stays rooted in what you can control, growth becomes possible. When it clings to what lies beyond your reach, frustration becomes inevitable. There is an old story about a sailor crossing a vast sea. Halfway through the journey, a violent storm appeared. The younger sailors panicked. They screamed at the wind. They cursed the rain. They blamed the sea. Only the old captain remained calm. One frightened sailor shouted, "Why aren't you trying to stop the storm?" The captain smiled gently. "I cannot command the wind, but I can adjust the sails." That sentence contains one of the greatest lessons in Stoicism. Life is not asking you to control the storm. It is asking you to learn how to sail. Think about your own life. How many nights have you lost sleep worrying about something that never happened? How many hours have you spent replaying one awkward conversation? How many times have you wished another person would finally understand you? How much energy has been spent trying to rewrite yesterday? Psychologists call this the illusion of control. Human beings naturally overestimate their ability to influence events beyond their reach. The mind believes that if it worries enough, analyzes enough, plans enough, it can prevent uncertainty. But uncertainty is woven into life itself. Imagine trying to stop the sun from setting. No matter how determined you are, evening always arrives. Some realities do not ask for your permission. They simply exist. The more peacefully you accept them, the more peacefully you begin living. Marcus Aurelius understood this deeply. As emperor of Rome, he commanded armies, governed millions of people, and made decisions that shaped history. Yet despite all that power, he reminded himself every morning that many things would happen beyond his control. People would criticize him, some would betray him. Unexpected problems would arise. He did not waste precious energy wishing reality were different. Instead, he asked one simple question: what is my duty in this moment? Notice the difference. Not, why is this happening? Not, who should I blame? Not, how do I make life perfectly fair? Only, what is the next right action? That question transforms anxiety into purpose. Imagine carrying two buckets. One is filled with stones labeled, other people's opinions, the past, the future, things I cannot change. The second bucket contains only one stone, my next choice. Which bucket do you think is easier to carry? Yet every day, many of us choose the heavier one. There is another story about an elderly monk walking beside a river with his student. The student looked troubled. "Master," he said, "I cannot stop worrying." The monk picked up a dry leaf floating nearby. He placed it gently on the water. Together they watched it drift downstream. Did the leaf fight the river? No. Did it complain about the current? No, it simply moved with what it could not change. The monk looked at his student and asked, "Why should your heart be heavier than a leaf?" The student never forgot those words. Perhaps we all need that reminder, because many of our greatest struggles begin not with reality, but with resistance to reality. The Stoics never asked us to become passive. They were not teaching surrender. They were teaching discernment. Fight for what is yours to shape. Release what never belonged to you. There is tremendous strength in knowing the difference. Over the next chapters, we'll explore why the human mind craves control, what modern psychology teaches us about anxiety and uncertainty, and how Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca discovered a path to extraordinary inner peace even in a world filled with chaos, because freedom does not begin when life becomes predictable. Freedom begins the moment you stop demanding that it must be, and perhaps the greatest act of courage is not controlling everything around you. It is finally loosening your grip, trusting the process, and allowing life to unfold where it must, while giving your full strength to the one thing that has always been yours, your own character. Why do we cling so tightly to things we cannot control? Why does the mind keep replaying yesterday's mistakes, imagining tomorrow's disasters, or trying to predict every possible outcome? The answer lies deep within human psychology. Your brain was never designed to love uncertainty. For thousands of years, uncertainty often meant danger, not knowing where food would come from, not knowing whether a storm was approaching, not knowing if an enemy was nearby. Those uncertainties could threaten survival. So the brain evolved to constantly search for certainty. It scans for patterns. It predicts risks. It imagines worst-case scenarios. That ability once protected us. Today, it often exhausts us. Imagine a smoke alarm inside your home. Its purpose is to warn you about fire. But suppose it became so sensitive that it rang every time you toasted bread. Eventually, the alarm itself would become the problem. An anxious mind works much the same way. It tries to protect you by preparing for every possibility. Instead, it traps you inside endless worry. This is why many people mistake overthinking for preparation. They believe, if I think about it long enough, I'll find the perfect solution. If I keep worrying, I'll be ready for whatever happens. But notice what actually happens. The body becomes tense, sleep becomes difficult, the heart races, the mind grows tired, yet the future remains exactly as uncertain as before. Imagine trying to clear muddy water by stirring it constantly. The harder you stir, the cloudier it becomes. Leave the water alone. Slowly, the mud settles, clarity returns on its own. Your mind often works exactly like that. Sometimes peace is not created by doing more. Sometimes it appears when you stop resisting. There is an old story about a young scholar who traveled to a mountain monastery seeking wisdom. He found an elderly monk quietly drinking tea while watching the clouds drift across the sky. The young man spoke without stopping. He described his worries. his career, his relationships, his fear of failure, his fear of making the wrong decisions. The monk listened patiently. Then he pointed toward the clouds. Can you stop them from moving? No. Can you tell them where to go? No. But can you choose whether to stand here peacefully or spend the entire afternoon shouting at the sky? The scholar smiled for the first time in months. He laughed. Sometimes our worries are exactly like those clouds. They pass through the mind, but we insist on chasing every one of them. Psychologists often call this catastrophizing. The mind imagines the worst possible outcome, then reacts as though it has already happened. One unanswered message becomes, something must be wrong. One mistake at work becomes, my career is over. One disagreement becomes, this relationship will never recover. Notice how quickly imagination becomes mistaken for reality. The Stoics recognized this long before modern psychology gave it a name. Epictetus reminded his students that events themselves rarely disturb us. Our judgments about those events do. Imagine two travelers caught in heavy rain. One curses the weather, complains endlessly, feels miserable for hours. The other opens an umbrella, accepts the rain, and continues walking. The storm is identical. The experience is completely different. The difference is not the weather. It is the response. Marcus Aurelius practiced this every day. As emperor, he faced disease, famine, war, betrayal, and constant uncertainty. Yet instead of asking, why is this happening to me? He trained himself to ask, what virtue does this situation require? Patience, courage, wisdom, self-control. That simple shift transformed obstacles into opportunities for character. Imagine life as a vast chessboard. You cannot choose every move your opponent makes, but you can choose your own. The strongest players never waste energy complaining about pieces already moved. They focus on the next decision. Life rewards the same mindset. There is another psychological trap that keeps people suffering. It is called the need for closure. Human beings naturally want every question answered, every conflict resolved, every ending explained. But life rarely offers complete closure. Sometimes people leave without apologizing. Sometimes opportunities disappear without explanation. Sometimes relationships end while questions remain unanswered. Imagine reading a novel with several missing pages. You may spend years wondering what those pages contained. Or you may continue reading the chapters that remain. Many people pause their entire lives waiting for answers that never come. The Stoics chose differently. They accepted that certainty is not required for peace. Only acceptance is. Seneca once observed that we often suffer more in imagination than in reality. Think about that. How many battles have you fought only inside your own mind? How many arguments never actually happened? How many fears disappeared the moment reality finally arrived? Imagine carrying an umbrella every single day because weather forecasts predict rain for months. The sky remains clear. You still carry the umbrella. Eventually, your shoulders become sore, not because it rained, because you prepared endlessly for something that never came. Worry often works exactly like that. Preparation is useful. Permanent anticipation is exhausting. There is a beautiful story about a bamboo forest after a violent storm. Towering oak trees had snapped under the force of the wind. Branches lay scattered across the ground. Yet the bamboo remained standing, not because it resisted the storm, because it bent with it. Acceptance is often misunderstood as weakness. The Stoics saw it as flexibility. The strongest people are not those who refuse to bend. They are those who adapt without breaking. That is emotional resilience, not pretending life is easy, not denying pain, but refusing to become imprisoned by what cannot be changed. As we continue this journey, we'll explore one of the greatest ideas in all of Stoicism, the dichotomy of control. It became the foundation of Epictetus' teachings. It guided Marcus Aurelius through the collapse of an empire, and today, it remains one of the most practical tools for reducing stress, overcoming anxiety, and finding lasting inner peace. Because the moment you stop fighting reality, you recover something far more valuable than certainty. You recover your freedom, and that freedom begins with one simple realization. You do not need to control the entire world to live a peaceful life. You only need to master the small part of it that has always belonged to you. Imagine standing before a massive stone gate. On one side lies frustration, fear, endless anxiety, the exhausting need to control every outcome. On the other side lies peace, clarity, resilience, freedom. The key to opening that gate is surprisingly simple. It is a question the Stoics ask themselves every single day. Is this within my control? If the answer was yes, they gave it their full effort. If the answer was no, they practiced letting it go. This principle became the foundation of Stoicism. Epictetus called it the distinction between what depends on us and what does not. Today, it is often known as the dichotomy of control. Although the idea sounds simple, living it requires courage. Imagine carrying two baskets. The first basket contains your thoughts, your actions, your values, your effort, your attitude. The second basket contains other people's opinions, the weather, the economy, the past, the future, luck, and the choices of everyone around you. Now imagine trying to carry both baskets through life. Soon your shoulders begin to ache, not because life is unfair, but because one basket was never yours to carry. Epictetus taught that peace begins the moment you put that basket down. There is an old story about a farmer whose horse ran away. The neighbors rushed over. What terrible luck! The farmer simply replied, perhaps. The next day, the horse returned, bringing several wild horses with it. What wonderful luck! The farmer answered, perhaps. Later, the farmer's son tried riding one of the wild horses and broke his leg. Again, the neighbors declared, how unfortunate. The farmer responded, perhaps. A week later, soldiers arrived to recruit every healthy young man for war. Because of his injury, the son was left behind. Once again, the neighbors exclaimed, how fortunate. The farmer smiled. Perhaps the story reminds us how little we truly know. We judge events too quickly. We label them good or bad before the story has finished unfolding. The Stoics understood that today's disappointment may become tomorrow's opportunity. Today's setback may become tomorrow's greatest teacher. Marcus Aurelius experienced this truth repeatedly. He never ruled during a peaceful era. His reign was marked by devastating wars, disease, political conspiracies, and constant uncertainty. Many leaders would have become bitter. Some would have blamed fate. Others would have surrendered to despair. Marcus chose a different path. Every challenge became another opportunity to practice virtue. He could not control invasions, but he could control courage. He could not stop disease, but he could respond with compassion. He could not prevent betrayal, but he refused to become dishonest himself. Notice where his attention remained, not on circumstances, on character. Imagine an archer preparing to shoot an arrow. She studies the target carefully. She steadies her breathing. She practices for years. Finally, she releases the arrow at that exact moment. Something changes. The result no longer belongs entirely to her. A sudden gust of wind may appear. The target may move. Unexpected circumstances may interfere. The Stoics believed life works exactly like this. Your responsibility is preparing the shot, not guaranteeing the outcome. Many people reverse the process. They obsess over results while neglecting effort, then disappointment follows. There is another story about an elderly sculptor creating a magnificent statue from a block of marble. A young apprentice watched him for weeks. One day, the apprentice asked, "Master, aren't you afraid of making mistakes?" The sculptor smiled. "My responsibility is to carve carefully. The marble will become whatever it becomes. If I spend every moment fearing the final result, my hands will never create anything." How many dreams remain unfinished because people became obsessed with controlling outcomes? How many opportunities disappear because fear demanded certainty before action? The Stoics remind us that certainty is rarely available. Courage is. Psychologists today describe something called the circle of influence. It closely resembles Stoic philosophy. The more attention you invest in what you can actually influence, the stronger your confidence becomes. The more attention you invest in what lies beyond your reach, the more powerless you begin feeling. Imagine watering two plants. One is alive, the other is made of stone. Every day you pour water onto both. Weeks pass, only one grows. Your attention works the same way. Invest it where growth is possible, not where change is impossible. Seneca offered another profound insight. He believed people suffer because they demand certainty from an uncertain world. Imagine boarding a ship. You know storms are possible. You know delays may happen. You know the sea cannot be controlled. Yet you still begin the journey. Life deserves the same attitude. Accept uncertainty before it arrives. Then it loses much of its power to frighten you. There is an old story about a child flying a kite. Strong winds suddenly appeared. The child became frightened. The wind is ruining everything. His grandfather gently replied, "Without the wind, the kite would never rise." How often do we curse the very circumstances that later help us grow? Failure teaches resilience. Criticism teaches humility. Loss teaches gratitude. Uncertainty teaches trust. The Stoics never claimed suffering was pleasant. They simply refused to let suffering become meaningless. Every challenge became another opportunity to strengthen the soul. Imagine standing before a mirror every morning. Instead of asking, "Will life be easy today?" ask, "Who will I choose to become today?" Patient, honest, disciplined, compassionate, calm. Those qualities belong entirely to you. No stranger can steal them. No storm can destroy them. No disappointment can remove them, unless you surrender them yourself. That is the extraordinary freedom the Stoics discovered. Your peace does not depend on controlling the world. It depends on governing yourself. And once you truly understand that, something remarkable happens. You stop chasing certainty. You stop demanding perfect outcomes. You stop exhausting yourself trying to control people, events, and the future. Instead, you become like the skilled sailor. You cannot command the wind, but you master the sails. You cannot choose every wave, but you choose how you meet them, and in that quiet decision, you discover the kind of freedom no circumstance can ever take away. Imagine trying to hold back a river with your bare hands. At first, you believe that if you push hard enough, the water will stop. You strain every muscle. You fight the current. You exhaust yourself. Hours later, the river continues flowing exactly as before. The only thing that has changed is you. You are tired, frustrated, defeated. This is what happens when we spend our lives resisting reality. The world keeps moving, time keeps passing, people keep making their own choices. The seasons continue changing, and somewhere along the way, we realize the battle was never against life itself. It was against our refusal to accept what life was asking of us. The Stoics understood that acceptance is not surrender, it is wisdom. Imagine a sailor who spends the entire voyage complaining about the wind. Every gust becomes another reason to feel angry. Another sailor aboard the same ship studies the wind instead. He adjusts his sails, changes his direction, works with the current instead of against it. Both sailors experience the same ocean, only one reaches the harbor in peace. Life offers us the same choice every day. Fight reality or learn to navigate it. There is an old story about a sculptor who searched the mountains for the perfect block of marble. For months he rejected every stone. One had a crack, another was too rough, another was oddly shaped. Years passed. He created nothing. Meanwhile, another sculptor chose an imperfect block and began carving immediately. When people admired the finished statue, they asked, "How did you find such perfect marble?" The sculptor smiled. "It wasn't perfect. I simply stopped waiting for perfection." How many lives remain unfinished because people refuse to begin until every condition is ideal? The perfect opportunity, the perfect relationship, the perfect timing, the perfect certainty. The Stoics believed perfection is an illusion. Progress is real. Marcus Aurelius never waited for ideal circumstances. His reign was filled with hardship. War consumed Rome's borders. Disease spread through the empire. Political conspiracies surrounded him. Yet every morning he chose to focus on one question: what can I do? Well, today? Not next year. Not when life becomes easier. Today. Imagine planting an oak tree. You cannot force it to grow overnight. You cannot command the rain. You cannot control the sunshine. But you can water the soil, protect the roots, be patient. Growth belongs to time. Effort belongs to you. Many people confuse these two. They demand immediate results from long-term actions. When success doesn't appear instantly, they quit. Nature teaches a different lesson. Everything meaningful grows slowly. There is another story about a young violinist who dreamed of becoming one of the greatest musicians in the world. Every performance became torture. He obsessed over the audience. He feared criticism. He worried about making mistakes. Eventually, an elderly conductor offered him one simple piece of advice. When you walk onto the stage, stop trying to control what people think. Control only how honestly you play. Those words changed everything. His performances became calmer, more authentic. Ironically, the less he tried to impress others, the more deeply he moved them. This is one of life's great paradoxes. The harder you chase approval, the farther it seems to move away. The moment you stop chasing it, you often discover confidence. Psychologists call this acceptance-based resilience. Research consistently shows that people who accept uncertainty instead of constantly resisting it experience lower levels of chronic stress and greater emotional flexibility. Acceptance does not remove difficulty. It removes the unnecessary suffering created by fighting reality. Imagine carrying a backpack filled with bricks. Each brick represents something you cannot change. The past, someone else's opinion, a missed opportunity, an unfair decision, an unexpected loss. Now imagine walking across a mountain. Every unnecessary brick makes the climb harder. The mountain isn't your greatest obstacle anymore. The weight you refuse to release is. Seneca once wrote that much of human misery comes from imagining life should always match our expectations. But life has never promised certainty. It has only offered possibility. The ancient bamboo forests of Asia provide a beautiful example. When powerful storms arrive, towering trees often snap under the pressure. Bamboo bends its ways with the wind. After the storm passes, it rises again. Many people mistake flexibility for weakness. The Stoics saw it as strength. Rigid expectations often break under pressure. Flexible minds adapt. There is an old story about an emperor who commissioned two painters. He asked each artist to create a masterpiece representing peace. The first painted a calm lake beneath a bright blue sky. The second painted a violent waterfall crashing through dark cliffs during a thunderstorm. Hidden behind the waterfall, a small bird rested peacefully inside its nest. The emperor chose the second painting. When people asked why, he answered, "Peace is not the absence of chaos, it is remaining calm within it." That is the heart of Stoicism. Inner peace is not created by controlling every circumstance. It is created by refusing to let circumstances control you. Imagine standing in a crowded train station. Hundreds of people rush in different directions. Announcements echo through the air. Trains arrive, trains depart. The station never becomes completely quiet. Yet in the middle of all that movement, you remain still, calm, present. Life itself is much like that station. Problems will continue arriving. Unexpected events will continue appearing. People will continue making choices you cannot understand. The question is no longer, how do I stop life from changing? The better question is, how do I remain steady while life changes around me? The Stoics answered with remarkable simplicity, focus on your character. Not circumstances, focus on effort, not outcomes. Focus on today's actions, not tomorrow's uncertainties. Because the strongest person is not the one who controls the world. It is the one who no longer needs to. And perhaps the greatest freedom you will ever discover is realizing that peace was never waiting for life to become perfect. It was waiting for you to finally loosen your grip, to stop wrestling with the river, to trust the current where you cannot steer it, and to place your full strength into becoming the kind of person who remains calm, no matter where the river flows. By now, one truth has become impossible to ignore. The greatest battles in life are rarely fought against other people. They are fought within our own minds. The Stoics believed that inner peace is not something you discover by accident. It is something you practice every single day, just as a blacksmith tempers steel through repeated fire. Character is strengthened through repeated choices. Small choices, quiet choices, the kind no one applauds. The question is no longer, can I control everything? You already know the answer. The better question is, what should I focus on instead? The answer lies in daily habits, not dramatic changes, not overnight transformations, but consistent practices that gradually reshape the way you think, respond, and live. Here are 10 Stoic habits that can help you let go of what you cannot control and reclaim your peace. 1. Begin every morning with the question, what is mine to control? Before checking your phone, before reading the news, before worrying about the day ahead, pause, ask yourself, what belongs to me today? Your attitude, your effort, your honesty, your discipline, your patience. Everything else is uncertain. Starting the day with this reminder helps anchor your attention where it can actually make a difference. Marcus Aurelius practiced a similar mental exercise every morning. He expected challenges, but he also reminded himself that his response always remained his own. 2. Separate facts from stories. The mind loves creating stories. Someone doesn't reply to your message. Immediately, your imagination begins. They're upset with me. I must have done something wrong. They're ignoring me. But those are not facts. They are interpretations. Whenever anxiety appears, ask yourself, what do I actually know? This simple habit prevents imagination from becoming unnecessary suffering. 3. Replace worry with action. Whenever you catch yourself worrying, divide the situation into 2 columns. Things I can control, things I cannot control, then do something remarkable. Write 1 small action under the first column. Ignore the second. Action weakens anxiety. Rumination feeds it. Imagine watering a seed instead of staring at the clouds hoping for rain. Growth always begins with what you can do today. 4. Practice the pause. Most suffering happens between an event and your reaction to it. A harsh comment, unexpected criticism, bad news. Instead of reacting immediately, pause. Take one slow breath. Ask, what response reflects my best character? Epictetus taught that no event forces your reaction. There is always a moment, however brief, where wisdom can enter. That moment changes everything. 5. Accept that uncertainty is part of every meaningful life. Many people postpone happiness until certainty arrives. I'll relax when everything is settled. I'll be peaceful when I know the outcome. But certainty is rarely permanent. Imagine waiting for the ocean to become completely still. Before learning to sail, you would wait forever. Learn to sail while waves exist. That is how resilient people live. 6. Guard your attention. Attention is one of the most valuable resources you possess. Where it goes, your life follows. If your attention constantly lives inside news headlines, social media arguments, or other people's opinions, your peace slowly disappears. Imagine your attention as a garden. Whatever you water grows. Choose carefully. 7. Practice gratitude for the present moment. Control often pulls us into the future. Regret traps us in the past. Gratitude returns us to now. Each evening, identify 3 things already present in your life. A conversation, your health, a lesson learned, the warmth of sunlight, the sound of rain, the smile of someone you love. Peace grows where appreciation lives. 8. Let go of the last word. One of the strongest habits you can build is resisting the urge to win every argument. Not every misunderstanding requires another explanation. Not every criticism deserves a response. Imagine throwing a stone into a calm lake. Eventually, the ripples disappear on their own. Sometimes silence resolves what endless debate never could. Seneca believed that protecting your peace is often wiser than protecting your pride. 9. Reflect like a Stoic every night. Before sleeping, ask yourself 3 questions. What did I control well today? Where did I waste energy trying to control the uncontrollable? How can I respond more wisely tomorrow? Notice, not judge. Growth begins with awareness. Marcus Aurelius filled his journal with reflections like these, not because he considered himself perfect, because he believed every day offered another chance to improve. 10. Build your identity around character, not outcomes. This may be the most important habit of all. Do not measure yourself by promotions, praise, money, popularity, or circumstances. Measure yourself by your virtues. Were you honest? Were you courageous? Were you patient? Were you disciplined? Those qualities remain yours regardless of success or failure. Life can take away possessions. It cannot take away character unless you surrender it. There is an old story about a stonemason working on a magnificent cathedral. A traveler asked the first worker, "What are you doing?" The man replied, "I'm cutting stones." The traveler asked another worker, "What are you doing?" "I'm earning my wages." Finally, he approached an elderly craftsman who smiled and said, "I'm building something that will outlive me." All 3 workers performed the same task. Only one understood its deeper purpose. Your daily habits are much the same. You are not merely choosing how to spend today. You are building the person you will become for the rest of your life. Every time you release unnecessary worry, you strengthen peace. Every time you choose discipline over panic, you strengthen resilience. Every time you focus on effort instead of outcomes, you strengthen freedom. Imagine a lighthouse standing alone against a violent sea. Storm after storm arrives. The waves never ask permission. The wind never apologizes. Yet the lighthouse remains steady, not because it controls the weather, because it was built on a strong foundation. The Stoics wanted your character to become that foundation, not fragile enough to collapse whenever circumstances change, not dependent on approval, not dependent on certainty, but rooted in wisdom, rooted in purpose, rooted in self-mastery, because the person who has mastered themselves possesses a kind of freedom that no fortune can give, and no misfortune can ever take away. Perhaps today is the day you stop trying to command the wind. Perhaps today is the day you simply adjust your sails, and in doing so, you may discover that the peaceful life you have been searching for was never hidden in controlling the world. It was waiting inside the quiet decision to control yourself. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine standing on a quiet hill at sunset. The sky glows with shades of gold and crimson. A gentle breeze moves across the fields. In your hands, you are carrying a long rope. One end is tied to everything you have been trying to control, other people's opinions, the mistakes you made years ago, the future you cannot predict, the opportunities you missed, the unfair things that happened to you, the words someone once said that still echo in your mind. You pull on the rope with all your strength. Nothing changes. The past remains the past. The future remains unknown. People continue making their own choices. You grow tired. Your hands begin to ache. Then, quietly, someone asks you a simple question. What would happen if you simply let go? At first, the idea feels frightening. For so long, you've believed that holding on meant being responsible, that worrying meant caring, that controlling meant protecting yourself. But then you slowly open your hands. The rope falls to the ground, and something unexpected happens. The world does not fall apart. The sky does not collapse. The wind continues blowing. The sun continues setting. Life moves forward. Only now, you are no longer being dragged behind it. That is the freedom the Stoics wanted us to discover. Not freedom from difficulty, freedom from unnecessary suffering. Marcus Aurelius never asked for a life without problems. He asked for the wisdom to meet each problem with courage. Epictetus never promised certainty. He promised clarity. Seneca never claimed life would always be fair. He simply reminded us that our peace should never depend on fairness alone. Because if your happiness depends on controlling everything around you, you give the world permission to control you. But when your happiness depends on your character, your choices, your virtues, your response, then no storm can truly steal your peace. Imagine a mountain standing through every season. Winter covers it with snow. Spring brings rain. Summer fills it with warmth. Autumn paints it with color. The mountain never argues with the seasons. It simply remains what it is, strong, steady, unmoved at its foundation. Your mind can become like that mountain, not because life stops changing, but because you stop demanding that it shouldn't. There is an old story about an elderly potter who spent decades shaping clay. One afternoon, a young apprentice accidentally dropped a finished vase. It shattered across the floor. The apprentice fell to his knees. "I'm so sorry. I ruined everything." The old potter looked at the broken pieces for a moment. Then he smiled. "No, you broke a vase. You did not break your character." Together, they gathered the pieces, and they began again. How often do we confuse broken circumstances with broken lives? A failed plan is not a failed person. A disappointment is not your identity. An unexpected ending is not the end of your story. The Stoics believed that every setback presents the same choice: become bitter or become wiser. You cannot always choose what happens, but you can always choose what happens within you. Perhaps that is life's greatest freedom. Imagine your future self 10 years from now, looking back at this very moment. What advice would that wiser version of you give? Maybe they would smile gently and say, "Stop carrying what was never yours. You spent so many years trying to predict tomorrow that you forgot to live today. You worried about opinions that people eventually forgot. You feared storms that never arrived. You fought battles that existed only inside your imagination. And perhaps they would add one final sentence. The peace you were searching for was never waiting at the end of perfect circumstances. It was waiting at the end of resistance. So here is my challenge for you. For the next 30 days, practice one simple Stoic habit every morning. Before your day begins, ask yourself, what is within my control today? Write down 3 things: your attitude, your effort, your choices. Then let everything else remain where it belongs, outside your hands, outside your worry, outside your peace. At the end of each evening, ask yourself 3 more questions. Did I waste energy on what I couldn't control? Did I respond with wisdom instead of fear? Did I become a better person today than I was yesterday? Do this for 1 month, not to change the world, but to change the way you meet it. And I promise you'll begin to notice something remarkable. Your mind will grow quieter. Your reactions will become calmer. Your decisions will become clearer, not because life became easier, but because you became stronger. If this story resonated with you, leave a comment below and answer this question. What is one thing you've been trying to control that you're finally ready to let go of? Your answer may become the encouragement someone else needs today. And if you're committed to building a calmer mind through Stoicism, philosophy, psychology, and timeless life lessons, subscribe and join this community. Every week, we explore practical wisdom that helps us become stronger not by controlling the world, but by mastering ourselves. Always remember this: you cannot command the wind, you cannot stop every storm, you cannot rewrite yesterday. But you can choose your next thought, your next action, your next response. And sometimes that single choice is enough to change your entire life. Because peace is not found in controlling everything around you. Peace begins the moment you stop chasing the impossible, lift your eyes to what is truly yours, and walk forward with quiet confidence, knowing that your greatest power has never been over the world. It has always been over yourself.